The marriage certificate felt like a death warrant in Mary Blackwood's trembling hands. She stood in the cramped living room of the farmhouse, her father's farmhouse, stolen from her just like everything else, staring at the stranger across from her.
Etanhale.
The man her stepmother had picked. The man Mary was being sold to like livestock. Sign it. Regina Ripley hissed from behind her, perfectly manicured nails digging into Mary's shoulder.
Now.
Mary's pulse hammered in her ears. The pen weighed 1,000 pounds. Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into Mary's impossible choice, I want to say hello to each and every one of you watching right now. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love seeing our global family come together. And listen, if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button right now. This story is going to take you on an emotional roller coaster you do not want to miss, and I post stories like this regularly. Trust me, you'll want to be notified when the next part drops. Are you subscribed? If not, do it now. Alright, let's get back to Mary, because what happens next will change her life forever. The stranger, Ethan, stood motionless near the window, dirt under his fingernails, boots caked with mud, flannel shirt worn thin at the elbows. He looked like he'd walked straight out of poverty itself. His face was unreadable, shadowed by the late afternoon light filtering through stained curtains. Everything in Mary screamed to run. But there was nowhere to go. You're 27 years old and a burden, Regina said coldly, her voice like ice wrapped in silk.
No prospects.
No education. Working yourself to the bone for tips at that filthy diner. You should be grateful someone's willing to take you. Mary bit down hard on the inside of her cheek, tasting copper. 6 months. That's all it had been since her father died. 6 months since the heart attack that the doctors said came out of nowhere. 6 months of watching Regina strip the estate bare, sell off her father's assets, transfer accounts, and erase Thomas Deckard's legacy like he'd never existed. And now this. A forced marriage to a man she'd never met. He needs a wife. You need a home, Regina continued, circling Mary like a vulture. It's a fair trade. Sign the papers, move into his little shack, and stop being my problem. Mary's stepsister, Charlotte Bucket, giggled from the corner, perched on the armrest of the leather chair that used to be Mary's father's favorite. She wore a designer dress that cost more than Mary made in 3 months. Honestly, Mary, you should be thanking Mother. At least you won't die a spinster. Mary's jaw clenched. She wanted to scream. She wanted to fight. But the bitter truth was suffocating. She had no money, no legal claim, no power. Regina had made sure of that. The lawyer her father trusted? Paid off. The will? Lost in a convenient office fire. The extended family? Non-existent. Her mother had died when Mary was 9, and her father's relatives had never approved of him marrying a black woman, let alone raising a black daughter. Mary was invisible, erased. Just like her father. She forced herself to look up at Ethan Hale. He was still watching her. Not with pity. Not with cruelty. Just watching. His eyes were dark, unreadable. There was something unsettling about his stillness, like a predator deciding whether to strike. Why? Mary's voice cracked. She hated how small she sounded. Why would you agree to this? Regina's grip on her shoulder tightened painfully. Don't be rude. She has a right to ask. Ethan's voice cut through the room like a blade.
Deep.
Quiet. Steady. Everyone froze. He took a step forward, and Mary noticed for the first time how tall he was. How broad his shoulders were beneath that shabby shirt. How his calloused hands, rough from labor, didn't shake the way hers did. I need help on the farm, Ethan said simply, his gaze never leaving Mary's face. I'm alone. No family.
No
connections. Your stepmother made an offer. I accepted. An offer, Mary repeated bitterly. You mean she paid you? Something flickered in his eyes. Almost like amusement. Almost like pain. Something like that. Regina laughed, sharp and brittle. Oh, don't flatter yourself, girl. I gave him a bargain. A wife who can cook and clean in exchange for taking you off my hands. Now sign the damned paper before I throw you out with nothing but the clothes on your back. Mary's hands shook violently now. The pen hovered over the signature line. This was insane. Illegal, even. But who would she call? Who would believe her? She was a black woman with no resources, no allies, and a stepmother with money and connections. She was trapped. The room tilted. Her vision blurred. And then Ethan moved. He crossed the space between them in 2 strides and took the pen from her hand. His fingers brushed hers, rough and warm, and Mary flinched at the unexpected gentleness. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "Say the word, and I'll walk out that door right now." Mary's breath caught. She searched his face, desperate for a lie, for manipulation, for something that made sense. But all she saw was a strange, unshakable calm. "And then what?" she whispered. "Where do I go?" Ethan's jaw tightened. He glanced over his shoulder at Regina, who was watching them with predatory impatience, and then back at Mary. "Your choice," he said. "But if you sign, I give you my word, I won't hurt you." It wasn't a promise of love. It wasn't even a promise of kindness. But it was something. And right now, something was more than Mary had. She took the pen back. Her hand steadied, just barely. And she signed her name. Regina snatched the certificate the moment the ink dried, a triumphant smile curling her lips. "Excellent. Pack your things, Mary. You have an hour." Charlotte's laughter followed Mary up the stairs, mocking and cruel. An hour later, Mary stood on the porch with a single duffel bag containing everything she owned. Ethan waited by a battered pickup truck that looked like it had survived several wars. Regina stood in the doorway, arms crossed, victory gleaming in her cold eyes. "Don't bother coming back," she said sweetly. "This house is being sold next week." Mary's heart lurched. "Sold? But nothing. It's mine now. All of it." Regina's smile widened. "Your father should have been smarter about who he married." The door slammed in Mary's face. Mary stood frozen, grief and rage warring inside her chest. Then Ethan's voice, quiet and steady. "Let's go." She turned. He was holding the truck door open, waiting. Mary climbed in, numb. They drove in silence through the darkening streets of the small town, past the diner where she'd worked double shifts, past the church where her father's funeral had been held, past everything familiar, toward a future she couldn't see, toward a man she didn't know. As the farmhouse disappeared in the side mirror, one thought burned in Mary's mind. What have I done? But it was Ethan's next words, spoken so softly she almost missed them, that sent ice down her spine. "Your father was a good man, Mary. He didn't deserve what happened to him." Her head whipped toward him.
What?
You knew my father?" Ethan's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Yeah," he said, his voice heavy with something Mary couldn't name. "I knew him." And that's when Mary realized. This wasn't a random arrangement. This was something else entirely. Something dangerous. What did Ethan know about Mary's father? Why would he agree to marry a complete stranger? And what is Regina really hiding? Drop your theories in the comments below. I want to hear what you think is going on. And if you're not subscribed, hit that button now because what will happen next will blow your mind. The farmhouse appeared out of the darkness, like something from a forgotten dream. It wasn't the shack Mary had expected. The 2-story structure sat at the end of a long gravel driveway, surrounded by fields that stretched endlessly into the night. White paint peeled from the wooden siding, and the porch sagged slightly on one side, but there was something solid about it. Something that had weathered storms and survived. Kind of like Mary herself. Ethan killed the engine, and the silence pressed in immediately. So different from the constant noise of town, of the diner, of Regina's sharp voice cutting through every moment of peace. "Home," Ethan said simply, climbing out. Mary sat frozen in the passenger seat, her father's words echoing in her mind. He didn't deserve what happened to him. She grabbed Ethan's arm before he could walk away.
Wait.
"What did you mean? About my father?" In the dim glow of the porch light, Ethan's face was half-shadowed, unreadable. For a long moment, He didn't answer, and Mary wondered if he'd pretend he'd never said it. Then, he helped me once. A long time ago. I owed him. Owed him what? Everything. The word hung between them, heavy with meaning Mary couldn't decipher. That's not an answer, she pressed, frustration bleeding into her voice. You can't just say you knew him, and then… Inside. Ethan interrupted, his tone gentle but firm. It's cold. We'll talk inside. He pulled free of her grip and headed toward the house, carrying her duffel bag like it weighed nothing. Mary had no choice but to follow. The interior of the farmhouse was nothing like she'd imagined. It was clean. Spare, yes, minimal furniture, no decorations, but the hardwood floors gleamed, the windows were spotless, and the kitchen, though outdated, looked well-maintained. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace, filling the main room with warmth. This wasn't the home of a desperate, penniless man. This was the home of someone who chose simplicity. You'll take the bedroom upstairs, Ethan said, setting her bag down near the staircase. I'll sleep down here on the couch. Mary blinked. You what? The bedroom, he repeated, meeting her eyes steadily. It's yours. I won't touch you, Mary. This marriage is on paper only. You have my word. Something in Mary's chest loosened slightly. Not trust, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of something like relief. Why would you do that? She asked quietly. Why would you agree to marry someone you don't know, and then not even? She couldn't finish the sentence. Ethan crossed to the fireplace, his broad back to her, and for a moment, he just stood there, watching the flames. Your father saved my life, he said finally, his voice so low she had to strain to hear it. 10 years ago. I was in trouble. Bad trouble. He gave me a place to hide when no one else would. He didn't ask questions. Didn't judge. Just helped. Mary's throat tightened. That sounded exactly like Thomas Deckard. Her father had always been the first to extend a hand to someone in need, even when he had nothing to give. Especially then. I didn't know he'd passed until a few weeks ago, Ethan continued. I came back to town to pay my respects. To thank him, finally. But I was too late. The heart attack, Mary whispered, the words still tasting like poison. Her father had been 53. Healthy, active, massive, unsurvivable. But Mary had never believed it. Not fully. When your stepmother approached me with her proposition, Ethan said, turning to face her, I recognized your name.
Thomas talked about you.
Constantly. Showed me pictures. He was so proud of you, Mary. Tears burned Mary's eyes. She blinked them back furiously. Then you know what she did. What Regina took from me. I know. And you think marrying me somehow pays back a debt to my father?
No.
Ethan's dark eyes were intense, almost fierce. I think marrying you keeps you from ending up on the street or worse. And I think if your father were alive, he'd want someone watching your back. Mary's breath shuddered. You don't owe me anything. You didn't even know me. I know enough. Like what? Ethan's expression softened slightly. I know you worked 60-hour weeks at that diner to try to save money. I know you fought your stepmother on every sale, every transfer, even when you knew you'd lose. I know you visited your father's grave every Sunday at dawn because you couldn't face going when other people were there. Mary's heart stopped. How could you possibly? I've been watching, Mary. For weeks. Making sure you were okay. It should have felt creepy. Invasive. Instead, it felt like the first time in 6 months that someone had actually seen her. I'm not okay, Mary admitted, her voice breaking. I'm not even close to okay. The tears came then, hot and furious, and she couldn't stop them. All the grief she'd swallowed, all the rage she'd suppressed, all the bone-deep exhaustion of fighting a battle she could never win, it poured out of her in great, gasping sobs. And Ethan, this stranger, this man she'd married hours ago, crossed the room and caught her before she collapsed. His arms were strong and steady, and he didn't say a word. Didn't tell her it would be okay. Didn't offer empty platitudes. He just held her while she shattered. When Mary finally pulled herself together, embarrassment flooded through her. She stepped back, wiping her face with shaking hands.
I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to. Don't apologize for grieving, Ethan said firmly. You loved him. He loved you. That doesn't disappear just because someone tells you to move on. Mary nodded, not trusting her voice. Ethan gestured to the small kitchen table.
Seat.
I'll make coffee. You don't have to.
Sit, Mary.
She sat. While Ethan moved around the kitchen with surprising efficiency, Mary studied him more carefully. There were things about him that didn't add up. His hands were calloused, yes, but his posture was perfect. His clothes were shabby, but his boots, though muddy, were expensive. She'd seen enough wealthy customers at the diner to recognize quality leather. And the way he moved, controlled, deliberate, almost military. This man was not what he appeared to be. Who are you really? Mary asked as he set a steaming mug in front of her. Ethan settled into the chair across from her, his own mug cradled in his large hands. I'm a farmer. Bullshit. His eyebrows rose slightly. You don't think I can farm? I think you're hiding something. For a long moment, they stared at each other across the scarred wooden table. The fire crackled. The old house settled and creaked. Then Ethan smiled, just barely, just a slight curve at the corner of his mouth, and Mary's heart did something unexpected. It skipped. You're right, he admitted. I am hiding something. But so are you. Mary stiffened. What's that supposed to mean? It means, Ethan said carefully, that you're not just angry about losing your inheritance. You're afraid. And not just of being broke or homeless. You're afraid of something specific. Something about your father's death. Mary's blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Ethan leaned forward, his voice dropping. You don't believe it was a heart attack, do you? The world tilted. Mary's hands trembled around the coffee mug. She'd never said it out loud. Not once. Not to the doctors, not to the police, not even to herself in the dark hours of the night. But this stranger, this man who claimed to owe her father everything, had seen straight through her. He was healthy, Mary whispered, the words finally spilling out. He didn't drink, didn't smoke, ran 5 miles every morning, and then one day he just drops dead? Right after Regina starts pressuring him to change his will. What did the autopsy say? There wasn't one. Regina insisted on cremation immediately. Said it's what he would have wanted. Mary's voice turned bitter. Which was a lie. He wanted to be buried next to my mother. Ethan's jaw clenched. And no one questioned it? Who was going to? Regina was his legal wife. I was just his daughter. I had no rights. Did your father have enemies? The question caught Mary off guard.
What? No.
He was an accountant. He did people's taxes. He was the most boring, wonderful, safe man in the world. But even as she said it, doubt crept in. Because there had been something. In those last few weeks before he died, Thomas Deckard had been different.
Distracted.
He'd made Mary promise to keep certain documents safe. Old files from his office, financial records, things she hadn't understood. She'd hidden them, just like he'd asked. And then he died, and in the chaos of grief and Regina's machinations, Mary had completely forgotten about them. Until now. Mary. Ethan's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. If you know something, anything, about what your father was working on before he died, you need to tell me.
Why?
What does it matter now? He's gone and Regina won everything. Because, Ethan said, his dark eyes burning with an intensity that made her shiver, I don't think your father died of natural causes. And I don't think Regina just wanted to find the truth. To make the people who destroyed both their families pay. He pulled up another number on his phone. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Is it done? Yeah, Ethan said quietly. I married her. She's safe. For now. Good. Does she know?
No.
And she can't. Not yet. She deserves the truth, Ethan. She deserves to be alive, Ethan countered. The truth might get her killed. A long pause. Then, watch your back. Regina's already moving. She sold the Deckard estate this morning. To Vanderbilt Holdings. Ethan's blood turned to ice. Vanderbilt Holdings. The same shell corporation that had orchestrated his family's destruction. The same people who'd murdered his parents, his brother, his sister. The same people who'd been hunting him for a decade. They know I'm back, Ethan said flatly.
Yeah.
They know. Ethan ended the call and stared out at the darkness. Somewhere out there, his enemies were circling. But this time, he wasn't running. This time, he had something worth fighting for. He had Mary. And God help anyone who tried to hurt her. Mary woke to the smell of bacon and coffee, and for one disorienting moment, she thought she was home. Her real home, with her father humming off-key in the kitchen while he burned breakfast. Then reality crashed down. She sat up, heart aching, and checked her phone.
6:47 morgens.
3 missed calls from the diner asking where she was.
Right.
She'd forgotten to call in her resignation. She'd forgotten she no longer had a job. She'd forgotten she no longer had anything except the clothes in her duffel bag and a marriage certificate to a stranger. Mary dragged herself out of bed, still wearing Ethan's oversized t-shirt, and padded downstairs barefoot. Ethan stood at the stove, his back to her, flipping bacon with practiced ease. He'd already showered. His dark hair was still damp, and he wore clean jeans and a navy Henley that actually fit him properly. Without the shabby flannel and mud-caked boots, he looked different. Stronger. Younger. Almost dangerously handsome. Mary shook the thought away. You cook. He glanced over his shoulder, and something flickered in his eyes when he saw her, something warm that made her suddenly aware she wasn't wearing pants. I cook, he confirmed, his voice slightly rougher than usual. Scrambled or fried?
Scrambled, I guess.
Good choice. He cracked eggs into a pan with one hand, effortlessly. Sleep okay? Better than I have in months, actually. Mary slid into a chair at the kitchen table, tucking her bare legs underneath her. Which is weird, considering I just married a complete stranger and moved into his house. Ethan's mouth curved slightly. Maybe you were exhausted. Maybe I was tired of fighting alone. The words came out before Mary could stop them, raw and honest. Ethan went still for a moment, then resumed cooking without comment. They ate in companionable silence, and Mary was surprised to discover the food was actually good. Better than good. The man could cook. So what now? She asked finally, pushing her empty plate away. What's the plan? I work the farm, play house, pretend this is normal? Now, Ethan said carefully, we figure out what your father was protecting. Mary's pulse quickened. What do you mean? Ethan pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. On the screen was a news article dated that morning. Deckard Estates sold to development company. Historic property to be demolished for commercial complex. Mary's stomach dropped. Demolished? They're going to tear it down. Vanderbilt Holdings bought it, Ethan said, his tone grim. They're planning to break ground next week. Which means anything inside that house has about 72 hours before it's gone forever. Mary's mind raced. The documents. The files her father had made her hide in the basement, she breathed. Oh God. The basement. Ethan leaned forward instantly. What's in the basement? My father made me hide some things. Financial records, old client files. He said if anything ever happened to him, I should keep them safe. I completely forgot until last night. Where exactly? There's a false panel behind the water heater. He showed me how to access it. Mary stood abruptly, adrenaline surging. We have to get them. Before Regina or whoever.
No.
The word was flat, absolute. Mary whirled on him. Excuse me? It's too dangerous, Ethan said, rising to his full height. If those files are important enough to kill for, and I think they are, then they're definitely watching that house. I don't care. Those are the last things my father left me. I'm not letting them be destroyed. Mary, don't marry me. You don't get to decide this. She crossed her arms, chin lifting defiantly. I'm going, with or without you. Ethan stared at her for a long moment, something like admiration warming his dark eyes. You're stubborn.
I'm desperate.
There's a difference.
Fine.
He grabbed his keys from the counter. But we do this my way.
Carefully.
And if I say we run, we run. Understood? Mary nodded, relief flooding through her. Understood. Then go put on pants, Ethan said, the corner of his mouth twitching. Unless you're planning to break into your old house dress like that. Mary looked down at herself, bare legs, oversized t-shirt, messy hair, and felt heat flood her cheeks. When she looked up, Ethan was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read.
Soft.
Almost tender. For what it's worth, he said quietly, your father would be proud of you. You're a lot stronger than you think. Something in Mary's chest cracked open. Before she could respond, Ethan turned away, grabbing his jacket. We leave in 10 minutes. The drive back to town felt surreal. Mary sat in the passenger seat of Ethan's truck, watching familiar streets roll past, trying to calm her racing heart. She'd been banished from that house less than 24 hours ago. Returning felt like walking back into a prison. But those files were the key. She could feel it. Tell me about Vanderbilt Holdings, Mary said suddenly. You recognize the name. Why? Ethan's jaw clenched. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, they're not a development company. They're a front. For what? For people who destroy things they can't control. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. They've done it before. Bought properties, liquidated assets, erased evidence. And they don't leave witnesses. I slid down Mary's spine. Witnesses to what? That's what we need to find out. They turned onto Mary's old street, and her breath caught. The Deckard estate, her childhood home. The place where she'd learned to ride a bike and celebrated every birthday and said goodbye to her father for the last time, already had a demolition notice posted on the front gate. Danger. Scheduled for demolition.
No trespassing.
Park around the corner, Mary instructed, her voice steadier than she felt. There's a back entrance through the garden. Regina never bothered to change those locks. Ethan did as she asked, pulling into an alley 2 streets over. He killed the engine and turned to her, his expression serious. Last chance to back out. Not a chance. He studied her for a moment longer, then nodded. Stay close to me. Don't touch anything you don't have to. In and out, 5 minutes maximum. They moved quickly through the overgrown garden, Mary leading the way along paths she'd walked 1,000 times. The back door was hidden behind an overgrown trellis of roses, her mother's roses, now wild and untended. Mary pulled out the key she'd kept on her keychain, hands shaking slightly. It still fit. The door swung open silently, and they slipped inside. The house was empty. Gutted. Regina had worked fast. All the furniture was gone. The walls stripped bare. Even the curtains had been removed. The place echoed like a mausoleum. Mary's throat tightened. This had been a home once, full of laughter and life and love. Now it was just a shell. Basement, Ethan murmured, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back. Protective. Grounding. They descended the narrow stairs into the cool darkness below. Mary pulled out her phone for light, navigating around empty boxes and discarded junk until she reached the old water heater in the corner. Here, she whispered, kneeling down. She felt along the wall until she found the seam, barely visible, perfectly concealed. She pressed the hidden latch her father had shown her, and the panel swung open. Inside was a fireproof lockbox. Mary pulled it out with trembling hands. It was heavy, substantial.
Real.
Got it, she breathed. That's when they heard footsteps overhead. Ethan's hand clamped over Mary's mouth instantly, pulling her back against his chest. His other hand reached for something at his waist. A gun. Mary's eyes went wide. Ethan had a gun. He put a finger to his lips, then pointed toward the basement stairs. 2 sets of footsteps. Male voices, low and professional. Supposed to be empty. You sure you saw movement? I'm telling you, someone's inside.
Fine.
Check it out. Boss wants this place clean before demo. No loose ends. Mary's heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Ethan pulled her deeper into the shadows. Behind the furnace, the lockbox clutched against her chest. The footsteps descended the stairs. A flashlight beam swept across the basement. Nothing down here.
Check the whole space.
She might have come back for something.
She.
They were looking for Mary. Ethan's arm tightened around her waist, his body coiled and ready. In the faint light, Mary could see his face, utterly calm, utterly focused. This wasn't a farmer scared of intruders. This was a man who'd done this before. The flashlight beam came closer, closer, and then Ethan's phone rang. The sound shattered the silence like a gunshot. There. Everything happened at once. Ethan shoved Mary toward the back corner. Run! 2 men rounded the furnace, and Ethan moved like lightning, a blur of controlled violence. He disarmed the first man with brutal efficiency, using the guy's own momentum to slam him into the wall. The second man lunged, but Ethan was faster, delivering a precise strike to the throat that dropped him instantly. Both men hit the ground unconscious in under 10 seconds. Mary stood frozen, the lockbox clutched to her chest, staring at the stranger she'd married. "Who the hell are you?" she whispered. Ethan grabbed her hand, his eyes fierce. "Someone who's going to keep you alive. Now move." They ran. Up the stairs, through the gutted house, out the back door. Behind them, Mary heard shouting, more voices, more footsteps. They sprinted through the garden, branches tearing at Mary's clothes. Ethan culled her along, his grip ironclad, navigating obstacles in the dark like he could see perfectly. They reached the truck and threw themselves inside. Ethan gunned the engine and peeled out, tires screaming. Mary twisted around to look through the back window. 3 men burst from the garden, shouting into phones. "They saw us," she gasped. "They saw us, they know." "I know." Ethan took a corner too fast, the truck fishtailing. "We need to get off the main roads.
Now."
Mary's hands shook violently around the lockbox. "Ethan, what the fuck is happening?
Who were those people?
How did you—" "Not now," he cut her off, checking the rearview mirror constantly. "Right now, we focus on staying ahead of them." "Ahead of who? Who's after us?" Ethan's jaw was granite. "The same people who killed your father." The words hit Mary like a physical blow. "And the same people," Ethan continued, his voice low and deadly, "who killed my entire family 10 years ago." Mary's world tilted. "What?" "My name is Ethan Hale," he said, taking another sharp turn onto a dirt road. "My family built a multi-billion-dollar empire. And when I was 19, someone orchestrated a hostile takeover, murdered my parents and siblings, and framed me for financial crimes that destroyed everything we'd built." Mary couldn't breathe. You're the Hale heir? The one who disappeared? The one they said embezzled millions and— "I didn't embezzle anything. I was set up. And your father was the forensic accountant who proved it." Ethan finally glanced at her, his dark eyes burning. "He saved my life by helping me disappear. And I think whatever's in that box is the evidence that got him killed." Mary looked down at the lockbox in her lap. Her hands had stopped shaking. Everything suddenly made terrible, perfect sense. "They think I have proof," she said slowly. "That's why Regina married my father. That's why she killed him. That's why she wanted me gone." "Yeah. And you married me to protect me. And to find the truth." Mary's mind raced. A secret billionaire. A murdered family. A conspiracy spanning a decade. This was insane. This was impossible. This was real. She looked at Ethan, really looked at him, and saw someone who'd lost everything just like her. Someone who'd been fighting alone for years. Someone who needed her just as much as she needed him. "Okay," Mary said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Then let's open the box. Let's find out what they're so desperate to hide." Ethan's expression shifted. Surprise, respect, something deeper. "You're not running?" "Running where?" Mary laughed, short and sharp. "They already took everything from me. From us. So fuck them. Let's take it back." For the first time since she'd met him, Ethan smiled. Really smiled. It transformed his entire face. "Your father was right about you," he said softly. "You're extraordinary." Heat flooded Mary's cheeks, but she didn't look away. And in that moment, Careening down a dark road with killers behind them and secrets in her lap, Mary felt something she hadn't felt in 6 months.
Hope.
Dangerous, reckless, impossible hope. Okay, I need you to drop a comment right now. Did you see that coming? Ethan is the Hail heir? What do you think is in that lockbox? Let me know your theories below, and if you're loving the story, please hit that subscribe button, because this is only getting more intense. They drove for 2 hours, switching roads randomly, doubling back, making sure they weren't followed. By the time Ethan finally pulled into an abandoned barn 20 miles outside town, dawn was breaking over the horizon in shades of gold and crimson. Mary's adrenaline had faded, leaving her exhausted and shaky. But she still clutched the lockbox like a lifeline. Ethan circled the truck one more time, checking for trackers, before finally nodding. We're clear. For now. Inside the barn, dusty light filtered through gaps in the wooden slats. It smelled like hay and old machinery, but it was dry and private. Ethan pulled out a tarp and spread it on the ground, then gestured for Mary to sit. She did, setting the lockbox between them. Your father didn't give you the combination? Ethan asked. Mary shook her head. He died before he could. But he used the same code, for everything. My mother's birthday. Her fingers trembled slightly as she spun the dial. October 14th, 89. The lock clicked open. Mary held her breath and lifted the lid. Inside were files.
Dozens of them.
Financial records, bank statements, corporate documents. And beneath those, a USB drive and a sealed envelope with 2 words written in her father's careful handwriting. For Mary. Tears blurred her vision. She touched the envelope gently, like it might disintegrate. He knew, she whispered. He knew something was going to happen to him. Ethan's expression was grim. May I? Mary nodded, unable to speak. He pulled out the files systematically, scanning each one with the focused intensity of someone trained to read complex documents. Mary watched his face change as he read. Anger, recognition, shock. Jesus Christ, he muttered. Your father documented everything. What is it? Ethan looked up, his dark eyes blazing.
Proof.
Of a conspiracy that goes back 15 years. Vanderbilt Holdings isn't just a shell company, it's a network of them. Dozens of subsidiaries, all connected, all designed to hide money laundering, corporate espionage, and hostile takeovers. He pulled out a specific document, a corporate family tree with names and connections mapped in meticulous detail. They targeted my family's company first, Ethan continued, his voice tight.
Hale Industries.
They planted evidence of fraud, tanked our stock, turned our board against us. And when my father refused to sell, they killed him. Made it look like suicide. Mary's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. My mother and siblings died in a car accident 2 weeks later.
Break failure, they said.
Tragic. Convenient. Ethan's hands clenched around the papers. I was next. They framed me for the embezzlement and tried to have me killed in lockup before trial. Your father got me out, faked my death, helped me disappear. And he kept investigating. Mary breathed, understanding dawning. He kept gathering evidence. For 10 years. Ethan held up another file. He traced every transaction, every payoff, every death they caused.
And he found the pattern.
Something that made Mary's breath catch and her heart race in a way that had nothing to do with fear. Ethan seemed to feel it too. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, gentle and deliberate, and his gaze dropped to her mouth for just a fraction of a second before he pulled back. We should look at the USB drive, he said, his voice slightly rougher. See what else your father left us. Mary nodded, not trusting herself to speak. They spent the next 3 hours going through everything. The USB drive was a treasure trove, encrypted files that Ethan managed to crack using passwords related to Mary's mother's name and birth date. Inside were bank records showing hundreds of millions of dollars moving through shell accounts. Email chains discussing asset acquisition and obstacle removal. Photos of people Mary didn't recognize, but Ethan did. That's Senator Morrison, he said, pointing to one image. And that's Judge Caldwell. And that. His face went pale. That's my uncle. Mary looked closer. The man in the photo was shaking hands with someone labeled in her father's notes as J. Vanderbilt, primary architect. Your uncle worked for them? Mary asked carefully. My uncle was my father's brother. He was on the board of Hale Industries. Ethan's voice was hollow. He sold us out. He helped them destroy his own family for money. Mary squeezed his hand.
I'm sorry.
Don't be. Ethan's expression hardened. Just means I know exactly where to start. He pulled out his phone and made a call. It rang twice before someone answered. It's me, Ethan said. I need a location on Richard Hale. Current residence, security detail, everything. Yeah, I know it's risky. I don't care. It's time. He hung up and looked at Mary. We have a lead, but it's going to be dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous, Mary countered. What's the plan? My uncle has a estate outside the city. If he's still working with Vanderbilt, he'll have information, communications, financial records, maybe even direct contact with whoever's running the operation. So we break in and steal it. Ethan's mouth quirked. You're getting comfortable with crime remarkably fast. I'm getting comfortable with justice, Mary corrected. There's a difference. The way Ethan looked at her then, with admiration and heat and something almost like awe, made Mary's skin flush. You're incredible, he said softly. You know that. I'm terrified, Mary admitted. But I'm also really, really angry. And right now, anger is winning. Good. Ethan stood, extending his hand to help her up. We can use that. When Mary took his hand, he pulled her upright, but didn't let go. They stood inches apart, the morning light slanting across his face, highlighting the sharp line of his jaw and the intensity in his dark eyes. Thank you, Mary whispered, for protecting me, for caring about my father, for not leaving me alone in this. I'm not going anywhere, Ethan said, his voice low and fierce. Whatever happens, we're in this together. You understand? Mary nodded, her heart pounding. And then, so quickly she almost missed it, Ethan leaned down and pressed his lips to her forehead. Gentle, reverent. A promise sealed with a kiss. When he pulled back, his eyes were molten. We should go, he said roughly. My contact will have that intel in an hour. Mary could only nod, her entire body vibrating with emotions she couldn't name. They stopped at a small diner off the highway for food and coffee. Mary borrowed Ethan's phone to call the diner where she'd worked and officially quit, enduring her manager's irritated lecture about notice periods. When she hung up, Ethan slid a plate of pancakes across the table to her. You didn't have to quit, he said. I know that job mattered to you. That job was survival, Mary corrected, drowning the pancakes in syrup. What we're doing, this matters. This is for my father, for your family, for everyone they've hurt.
Still.
I know it wasn't easy. Mary met his eyes. Neither was walking away from your entire life. But you did it to stay alive and find the truth. I can sacrifice a waitressing job. Ethan smiled slightly. Fair point. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Mary asked the question that had been nagging at her. Why farming? Of all the covers you could have chosen, why pretend to be a poor farmer? Ethan's expression grew distant. Because it was the opposite of everything I grew up with. Boardrooms and penthouses and people who'd stab you in the back for a quarterly bonus. The farm was quiet, simple, honest work with honest results. Plant seeds, they grow. Take care of the land, it takes care of you. You actually like it, Mary realized. Yeah. He looked almost embarrassed.
Ida.
When this is over, if we survive, I think I'll keep it. The farm. Build something real that can't be taken away by lawyers and shell corporations. That sounds nice, Mary said softly. Peaceful. You could stay, Ethan said suddenly, then seemed to catch himself. I mean, if you wanted. After everything is done, you'd have a place. A home. Mary's breath caught. Are you asking me to stay married to you? Ethan's ears turned slightly red. I'm saying you have options. That's all. But the way he looked at her suggested he was saying much more than that. All right, real talk, Do you ship Mary and Ethan yet? Because I am living for this slow-burn romance in the middle of all this chaos. Let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen when they confront Ethan's uncle, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. You do not want to miss what comes next. Ethan's phone buzzed with a text. He scanned it quickly, his expression darkening. We've got a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where my uncle is scheduled to leave the country tomorrow. Private jet to the Cayman Islands. If he runs, we lose our best lead. Mary's stomach sank. So, we have to move tonight. Yeah. Can we even get into his estate? You said he has security. Ethan's smile was dangerous. He has security that's designed to keep out normal thieves. I'm not a normal thief. And besides, he pulled something from his jacket pocket, a small black card. I still have family access codes. He never changed them because he thinks I'm dead. Will they work after 10 years? Only one way to find out. Mary stared at him. You're serious? We're actually going to break into a billionaire's mansion tonight and steal evidence from your uncle who betrayed your entire family. Yes. That's insane. Probably. We could get killed. Possibly. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes intense. But we could also get justice. We could also expose the people who murdered our families and ruined our lives. We could also make sure no one else has to go through what we went through. Mary thought about her father, about the life stolen from her, about the 47 other names in those files, 47 people who'd been erased by greed and power. She thought about Ethan, alone for 10 years, hiding and planning and waiting for a chance to fight back. And she thought about the version of herself from 2 days ago, broken, hopeless, convinced she'd lost everything. That Mary would have been too scared to try. But this Mary, the one sitting across from a secret billionaire turned farmer who'd married her to protect her, this Mary was ready to burn it all down. Okay, she said firmly. Let's do it. What do you need me to do? Ethan's smile was brilliant and proud and so genuinely happy that Mary's heart skipped several beats. I need you to trust me, he said. And I need you to be ready to run if things go sideways. I trust you, Mary said, and realized with a start that it was true. Completely true. And I'm not running unless you're running with me. Deal. They shook on it, hands clasped across the table, and Mary felt the weight of the promise settle over them like armor. Tonight, they'd face the enemy. Tonight, they'd take the first real step toward justice. Tonight, everything would change. But right now, in this moment, with Ethan's hand warm in hers and determination burning in her chest, Mary felt something she hadn't felt since her father died. She felt powerful. And God help anyone who underestimated the waitress and the farmer. Because they were coming for blood. Richard Hale's estate sat on 40 acres of manicured perfection, all stone walls and iron gates and old money arrogance. Mary and Ethan parked half a mile away and approached on foot through the woods, moving silently through the darkness. Ethan had changed into all black, his movements fluid and confident. He'd given Mary a similar outfit, tactical pants, a dark jacket, soft-soled boots. You have a story, Richard corrected, standing slowly. A narrative Thomas Deckard spent 10 years constructing. Very thorough, very convincing, also completely false. Mary's stomach dropped.
What?
Thomas Deckard wasn't investigating a conspiracy, Richard said, crossing to his desk and pulling out a file of his own. He was covering one up. And you've both been played like fools. He tossed the file onto the desk. Photographs spilled out. Mary stepped closer, her hands shaking, and picked one up. It was her father. Younger, maybe 15 years ago. Shaking hands with a man Mary didn't recognize. And in the background, partially obscured but unmistakable, her mother. Her mother, who died when Mary was 9. Her mother, who supposedly had no connection to any of this. What is this? Mary whispered. That, Richard said, pointing to the other man in the photo, is Jonathan Vanderbilt, founder and CEO of Vanderbilt Holdings. And that is your mother, Catherine Blackwood, his former business partner and co-conspirator. The room tilted. No, Mary breathed. That's not My mother was a teacher. She had nothing to do with. Your mother, Richard interrupted, was a corporate espionage specialist who helped Vanderbilt target and destroy 17 companies before the Hales. She died, genuinely died, in case you're wondering, when one of their operations went wrong. Car bomb meant for someone else. Mary couldn't breathe.
Couldn't think.
Ethan moved to her side immediately, his hand finding hers. He's lying. Am I? Richard pulled out another document. DNA test. Commissioned by me 5 years ago when I started investigating Thomas Deckard. Want to know what I found? He slid the paper across the desk. Mary picked it up with numb fingers. The words blurred and sharpened. Impossible and undeniable. Paternity test results. Thomas Deckard is not the biological father of Mary Blackwood. Probability of paternity, 0%. The world stopped. No, Mary whispered. No, that's not. Jonathan Vanderbilt is your biological father, Richard said, almost gently. Catherine Blackwood was his partner in every sense of the word. When she died, Thomas took you in, raised you as his own, and spent the next 18 years gathering evidence not to expose Vanderbilt, but to protect him. And to protect you. Mary's legs gave out. Ethan caught her, lowering her into a chair, his face stricken. Why? Mary managed. Why would he? Because he loved your mother, Richard said. And he'd promised her that if anything happened, he'd keep you safe from your father's world. So he created an elaborate fiction. A conspiracy theory with Vanderbilt as the villain and himself as the heroic investigator. All to keep you from ever learning the truth. Then who killed him? Ethan demanded, his arm around Mary's shoulders, anchoring her. If this is all lies, who murdered Thomas? Richard's expression darkened. That's the question, isn't it? Because someone did kill him. Someone who discovered what he was hiding. Someone who wants that evidence, the real evidence, not the fiction he fed you, to disappear forever. He pulled out his phone and brought up a photograph. Recognize her? It was Regina, Mary's stepmother. But in this photo, she was younger, harder, standing next to. Mary's breath caught. That's Vanessa Ripley, Richard said. Former CIA operative turned corporate fixer. She married your father 6 years ago under the name Regina. Not for his money. For access to whatever Catherine Blackwood left behind. Information, accounts, leverage. Vanderbilt sent her. Mary's mind reeled. My stepmother works for my biological father? Worked, Richard corrected. Past tense. Because 3 months ago, Vanessa Ripley went rogue. She killed Thomas, seized his assets, and disappeared with something very valuable. Something that belongs to Jonathan Vanderbilt. Something he's willing to burn the world to get back. What? Mary whispered. What did she take? Richard looked at her with something almost like pity. Encryption keys. To offshore accounts containing $11 billion. Money from every operation Vanderbilt Holdings has ever run. And the only person who knows how to access those accounts now, the only person with Catherine Blackwood's genetic markers required for the biometric security, is you. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. That's why Regina forced you into marriage with Ethan, Richard continued. She thought he was nobody. Disposable. Somewhere she could hide you until she figured out how to extract the access codes from you. But she didn't know Ethan was alive. Didn't know he'd actually protect you. Ethan's hand tightened on Mary's shoulder. So Regina is hunting Mary for access codes she doesn't even know she has? And Vanderbilt is hunting Regina for the encryption keys she stole, Richard confirmed. Which means you're both caught in the middle of a war between a rogue operative and a criminal empire. And the only thing keeping you alive is that they need Mary intact. Mary's hands shook violently. Everything she'd believed, everything her father had told her, everything she'd thought she was fighting for.
Lies.
All of it. I don't believe you, she said, but her voice cracked. My father wouldn't. He loved me. He wouldn't lie to me for 18 years. He loved you so much he lied to you for 18 years, Richard said quietly. To keep you safe. To keep you away from Jonathan Vanderbilt and the violence that follows him everywhere. Thomas Deckard was a lot of things, Mary, but he was a good father. The best kind. The kind who sacrifices everything for his child. Tears streamed down Mary's face. Ethan pulled her against his chest, and she collapsed into him, sobbing. "Why are you telling us this?" Ethan asked roughly, his arms wrapped protectively around Mary. "What's your angle?" Richard's smile was thin. "Because I want Vanderbilt destroyed as much as you do. He killed my brother. My family. I've spent 10 years building a case against him, just like Thomas did. The difference is, my evidence is real. And with Mary's biometric access and the encryption keys Regina stole, we can drain every account, expose every crime, and bring the whole empire down. And what do you get out of it?" "Revenge," Richard said simply. "Justice. The Hale name restored. And control of $11 billion that rightfully belongs to the families Vanderbilt destroyed. Including yours." Ethan's jaw clenched. "You want us to trust you. I want us to help each other. I have resources, information, and a plan. You have Mary and her genetic access. Together, we can end this." "Or you could be lying about everything," Ethan countered. "Using us just like everyone else." "Possible," Richard acknowledged. "But ask yourself this. If I wanted you dead, why am I talking to you instead of shooting you? Why tell you any of this?" It was a fair point, and Mary hated that it was. She pulled back from Ethan's embrace, wiping her eyes, trying to steady herself. "The files my father left me. The evidence. Was any of it real?" "Some," Richard said. "Thomas was meticulous. He documented real crimes committed by Vanderbilt Holdings. But he omitted the context. Made it look like he was an outsider investigating, rather than an insider protecting. The USB drive probably contains real bank records, but they're coded to appear incriminating without revealing the biometric access protocols." Mary looked down at her shaking hands. Somewhere inside her was the key to $11 billion. Money stained with blood and corruption and her mother's betrayal. Her mother, Catherine Blackwood, who Mary had idolized her entire life, was a criminal. And Jonathan Vanderbilt, the monster who destroyed Ethan's family, was her biological father. The irony was devastating. "I need air," Mary gasped, standing abruptly. I can't." She stumbled toward the balcony doors. Ethan followed immediately, but Mary held up a hand. "Alone.
Please.
Just give me a minute." He hesitated, clearly torn, then nodded reluctantly. Mary stepped out onto the balcony and gripped the railing, breathing hard, the night air cold against her tear-stained face. Everything was a lie. Her mother. Her father. Her entire life. Who was she, if not Thomas Deckard's daughter? What did that make her, if her blood came from a monster? "You're still you." Mary spun around. Ethan had followed her out anyway, standing in the doorway with an expression so tender it made her chest ache. "You're still the woman who fought her stepmother for 6 months even when she knew she'd lose," he continued, stepping closer. "You're still the person who risked her life to protect her father's legacy. You're still Mary. DNA doesn't change that." "My father lied to me," Mary whispered. "For my entire life." "He protected you," Ethan corrected gently. "There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes." Ethan reached up and brushed a tear from her cheek, his touch impossibly gentle. "Because real love sometimes means making impossible choices. And Thomas Deckard chose you. Every single day. Biology doesn't make you family, Mary. Love does. Choice does. And he chose you." Mary's breath shuddered. "I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm strong enough to." "You are," Ethan interrupted fiercely. "You're the strongest person I've ever met. And you're not alone. You have me."
Why?
Mary looked up at him, desperate to understand. "Why do you care so much?
You barely know me."
We've been married for 2 days, and it's not even real." Ethan's hands cupped her face, tilting her chin up until she had no choice but to meet his eyes. "It's real to me," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "From the moment I saw you at that diner 3 months ago, working yourself to exhaustion, fighting battles no one else could see. It's been real. I married you to protect you, yes, but I'm staying Because I choose to.
Because you matter to me, Mary.
More than revenge. More than justice. More than anything. Mary's heart stopped. Ethan. He kissed her. Not gentle. Not tentative. Desperate and fierce and full of all the emotion crackling between them for the past 2 days. Mary gasped against his mouth, and his arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her flush against him. She kissed him back just as fiercely, pouring her fear and grief and hope into it, anchoring herself to him like he was the only solid thing in a world that kept shifting beneath her feet. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. We're going to survive this, he promised. Together. And when it's over, when this is all finished, I'm going to ask you to stay married to me for real. And I'm going to hope like hell you say yes. Mary's laugh was half-sob. You're insane. Probably. He smiled, brushing his thumb across her lower lip. But I mean it. Ask me later, Mary whispered. When we're not running for our lives and drowning in conspiracy theories.
Deal.
They stood there for one more moment, wrapped in each other, finding strength in the connection that had formed so impossibly fast. Then they turned back toward the study, where Richard Hale waited with his dangerous proposition. Do we trust him? Mary asked quietly. No, Ethan said. But we use him. And we stay one step ahead.
How?
Ethan's smile was sharp and dangerous. By being smarter than everyone else. Starting now. They walked back inside together, hand in hand. Richard looked up from his desk, eyebrow raised. Finished your dramatic moment? Depends, Ethan said coolly. Are you finished with your exposition? For now. Richard pulled out a business card and slid it across the desk. This is a secure number. When you're ready to discuss terms, call me. But don't take too long. Regina and Vanderbilt won't wait forever. One question, Mary said, her voice steadier now. How do I access these accounts? What do I need to do? Richard studied her carefully. You'll need the encryption keys Regina stole, which we'll have to acquire from her, and your biometric signature. Retinal scan, fingerprint, and a passphrase only Catherine would have taught you. I don't know any passphrase. You might not realize you do. Catherine was clever. She hid things in plain sight. In songs, stories, family traditions. You'll have to remember. Mary's mind raced through childhood memories, searching for anything unusual, anything that might be a code. And then it hit her. The lullaby. Her mother used to sing her a lullaby every night. Strange lyrics that never quite made sense in a language Mary didn't recognize. She'd sung it to Mary every night until the night she died. That was the passphrase. Mary didn't tell Richard. Didn't tell anyone. But she filed it away, a secret weapon for later. We'll be in touch, Ethan said, taking Mary's hand and heading for the door. Ethan, Richard called after them. For what it's worth. I'm glad you're alive. Your father would be proud. Ethan paused but didn't turn around. My father would be ashamed of what you've become. They left without looking back. In the truck, speeding away from the estate, Mary finally let herself process everything. Do you believe him? She asked. Any of it? Some of it, Ethan said carefully. The DNA test could be faked, but the rest, the connection between your mother and Vanderbilt, Regina being a plant, that feels true. It explains too much. So, my mother was a criminal. My biological father is a monster. And the only man who ever truly loved me is dead. Hey. Ethan reached over and laced his fingers through hers. Thomas Deckard loved you. That part was never a lie. Everything else, the secrets, the misdirection, that was him trying to give you a normal life. A safe life. He failed, but not for lack of trying. Mary nodded, tears threatening again. What do we do now?
Now.
Ethan's expression hardened. We find Regina. We get those encryption keys. And we figure out what the hell your mother was really planning. And then we make them all pay. Vanderbilt, Regina, Richard, everyone who's hurt us. We burn it down and build something new from the ashes. Mary looked at their joined hands, then up at Ethan's fierce, determined face. Together, she asked softly. Together, he confirmed. Always. And despite everything, the lies, the betrayal, the impossible danger ahead, Mary felt something unfurl in her chest.
Hope.
And love. Dangerous, reckless, impossible love. But real. Finally, something real. They made it back to the farmhouse just before dawn. Ethan did 3 security sweeps before he'd let Mary inside, checking for trackers, surveillance, any sign they'd been followed. Only when he was satisfied did they finally collapse at the kitchen table, exhausted and overwhelmed. "We need to sleep," Ethan said, though his eyes were alert, scanning the windows. "A few hours at least. We can't think straight like this." Mary nodded, too drained to argue. But when she stood to head upstairs, her legs trembled. The adrenaline crash was hitting hard. Ethan caught her elbow, steadying her. "You okay?" "No," Mary admitted. "I have to." His hand came up to cup her cheek. "Because the alternative is giving up. And I'm not losing you, Mary. Not to them. Not to anyone." The fierceness in his voice made her heart ache. "I don't want to lose you either," she admitted quietly. Ethan's thumb brushed across her cheekbone, his dark eyes intense. "Then we fight. Together. Until the end." Mary nodded, drawing strength from his certainty. "Now go sleep," he said gently. "I'll keep watch. Ethan, you need rest too. I'll sleep when I know you're safe. Go." Mary wanted to argue, but she was too exhausted. She climbed the stairs, collapsed onto the bed fully clothed, and was asleep within seconds. She woke to the smell of smoke. Mary jolted upright, disoriented. The room was dark, had she slept all day, and acrid smoke was seeping under the door. "Ethan." She stumbled out of bed and yanked open the door. Smoke billowed up the staircase in thick, choking waves. Below, she could see orange flames licking at the walls of the living room. The house was on fire. "Ethan." Mary screamed again, coughing, her eyes burning. No answer. Terror seized her chest. She grabbed a shirt, pressed it to her mouth, and started down the stairs, staying low. The heat was intense, the smoke blinding. "Ethan, where are you?" She made it to the bottom step and saw him, unconscious on the floor near the overturned kitchen table. Blood matted his hair. Someone had hit him. Mary's heart stopped. She ran to him, shaking his shoulder desperately. "Ethan, wake up. Please." He groaned, but didn't open his eyes. The fire was spreading fast, consuming the dry wood of the old farmhouse. They had minutes, maybe less. Mary tried to pull Ethan toward the door, but he was too heavy, and her lungs were screaming for clean air. She coughed violently, tears streaming from the smoke. Come on, come on." Strong hands grabbed her from behind. Mary shrieked and fought, but whoever held her was much stronger. A cloth pressed over her mouth and nose, sweet and chemical-smelling.
Chloroform. No. No, no, no.
The world tilted and went black. Mary woke to the worst headache of her life. She was tied to a chair in a windowless room, wrists bound behind her, ankles secured to the chair legs. Industrial lighting buzzed overhead. The walls were concrete.
No decorations.
No identifying features. A basement. Or a warehouse. Panic flooded through her. "Ethan, he's not here, sweetheart." Mary's head whipped around. Regina, or Vanessa, or whatever her real name was, stepped out of the shadows, looking nothing like the polished, cruel stepmother Mary remembered. Her hair was pulled back severely, and she wore tactical clothing. A gun rested in a holster at her hip. This was the real woman. The operative. The killer. "Where is he?" Mary demanded, fighting against the ropes. "What did you do to him?" "Relax. Your husband is alive. For now." Regina circled Mary slowly, assessing. "I needed him unconscious long enough to extract you. The fire was regrettable, such a nice property, but necessary for the distraction. If you hurt him, you'll what?" Regina laughed. "You're tied to a chair, darling. You're not in a position to threaten anyone." Mary's jaw clenched. "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted. Access to Catherine Blackwood's accounts." Regina crouched in front of Mary, eyes cold. I know you have the biometric markers. I know you know the passphrase. And you're going to give them to me. I don't know what you're talking about. Regina's smile was sharp. Yes, you do. Richard Hale has a big mouth when he thinks he's in control. I've had his estate under surveillance for weeks. I heard everything. Mary's stomach sank. Of course. Of course Regina had been watching. Even if I knew, Mary said carefully, why would I help you? You killed my father. Thomas Deckard was a sentimental fool who outlived his usefulness, Regina said dismissively. He was supposed to hand over Catherine's encryption keys years ago. Instead, he kept stalling, kept protecting you, kept pretending he could keep you out of this world forever. So I eliminated the problem. Rage burned through Mary's fear. He loved me. He loved Catherine, Regina corrected. You were just the inconvenient reminder of her betrayal. She chose Vanderbilt over him, you know. Thomas was her cover, her safe little accountant who'd never question where she went or what she did. And when she died, he was stupid enough to keep raising her child out of some twisted sense of obligation. That's not true, isn't it? Regina tilted her head. Why else would he lie to you for 18 years? Why else would he create an elaborate fiction about investigating Vanderbilt instead of just telling you the truth about your mother? Because he wanted to protect me, Mary said fiercely. Because that's what real parents do. Regina's expression hardened. Well, your real parent is dead. And your biological father, Jonathan Vanderbilt, wants you brought to him immediately.
So you have a choice, Mary.
Give me the access codes, and I'll let you disappear quietly. Or refuse, and I'll drag you to Vanderbilt myself and let him extract them from you. Violently. Mary's blood ran cold. You've gone rogue. Richard said you stole from Vanderbilt. He's hunting you. Richard Hale is a bitter old man clinging to delusions of revenge, Regina sneered. Yes, I took the encryption keys. Yes, I plan to access those accounts myself. But Vanderbilt has resources I underestimated. So I'm cutting my losses and making a deal. I deliver you to him. He lets me walk away with enough money to disappear forever. He'll kill you the moment you're not useful. Maybe. But that's my problem, not yours. Regina stood, pulling out her phone. You have 1 hour to decide. Cooperate, or I make a call, and your husband dies. I have people watching him right now. 1 word from me, and they put a bullet in his head. Mary's heart seized. You're lying. Regina turned the phone screen toward her. It was a live video feed. Ethan, unconscious, lying on the ground outside the burning farmhouse. 2 armed men stood over him. He's still alive, Regina said casually. But he won't be for long if you don't cooperate. So, what's it going to be, Mary? The encryption keys and the passphrase.
Now.
Mary's mind raced desperately. If she gave Regina what she wanted, they were both dead anyway. But if she refused, Ethan would be executed. There was no good choice. No way out. I need time to think. You have 59 minutes. Regina pocketed her phone and headed for the door. Think fast. She left, the heavy door slamming shut behind her. Mary was alone. She fought the ropes desperately, twisting her wrists until they were raw and bleeding. But the knots were professional, unyielding. Tears of frustration and fear streamed down her face. Ethan was going to die because of her. Because of her mother's crimes. Because of blood and genetics and a legacy she'd never asked for. Mary thought about her father, Thomas Deckard, the only real parent she'd ever known. The man who'd chosen her every single day. Who'd lied to protect her. Who died trying to keep her safe from this exact nightmare. What would he tell her to do now? Be smart, Mary. You're stronger than you know. But she didn't feel strong. She felt terrified and helpless and so tired of fighting.
The door opened again.
Mary's head snapped up, expecting Regina. Instead, a different woman entered. Older, elegant, with sharp eyes and an expensive suit. Hello, Mary, she said in a cultured voice. My name is Victoria Corleone, and I work for your biological father. Mary's blood turned to ice. Vanderbilt. Yes. Victoria circled the chair slowly, appraising. He's very eager to meet you. You look quite like Catherine, you know. Same eyes. Same stubborn chin. I'm nothing like her.
No.
Victoria's smile was thin. Catherine was brilliant, ruthless, and willing to do anything to survive. From where I'm standing, you've inherited at least 2 of those qualities. What do you want? The same thing everyone wants. Access to $11 billion. Victoria pulled out a tablet and brought up a series of financial records. Your mother built this empire with Jonathan. She was the architect of half our most successful operations. And when she died, she took the access codes with her, locked them behind biometric security that only her genetic offspring could unlock. She had a backup plan, Mary realized, in case something happened to her. Catherine always had a backup plan. Victoria set the tablet aside. Here's the situation, Mary. Vanessa Ripley, Regina, as you knew her, has gone rogue. She's trying to leverage you for money and freedom. Jonathan has authorized me to make you a better offer.
I'm listening.
Cooperate fully. Provide the biometric access and the passphrase. In exchange, Jonathan will spare your life, give you $10 million, and let you disappear anywhere in the world you choose. It sounded too good to be true, because it was. And Ethan? Mary asked. Victoria's expression didn't change. Ethan Hale is a complication. He'll be eliminated regardless. Then no deal. Mary. No deal. Mary repeated fiercely. I don't help people who hurt the man I love. I don't care how much money you're offering. I don't care if you torture me. The answer is no.
Victoria Said.
I was afraid you'd say that. Catherine was the same way, stupidly loyal to the wrong people. It got her killed in the end. She stood, smoothing her skirt. You have 30 minutes before Vanessa contacts Jonathan directly, and this all becomes much messier. Use that time wisely. Victoria left. Mary was alone again. Heart hammering, mind spinning. 30 minutes. 30 minutes before Ethan died. 30 minutes before everything fell apart. She closed her eyes, fighting back sobs.
I'm sorry, Ethan. I'm so sorry.
And then she heard it. Faint. Almost imperceptible. A voice in her ear. Ethan's voice.
Mary.
Can you hear me? Her eyes flew open.
What?
Don't react, the voice continued. They're watching. The tracker I planted on you before we left the farmhouse is active. I know where you are. And I'm coming. Relief and terror flooded through Mary in equal measure. They think I'm unconscious, Ethan's voice said, calm and steady. I'm not. The feed is looped. I've got help on the way.
But I need you to buy time.
Can you do that? Mary gave the tiniest nod, barely perceptible. Good girl. I'm going to get you out of this. I promise. Just hold on a little longer. The connection went silent. Mary sat perfectly still, hope blazing in her chest. Ethan was alive. Ethan was coming. They had a chance. When Regina walked back in 15 minutes later, Mary was ready. Decided to be smart? Regina asked. Mary met her eyes, steadily. I'll give you what you want. But I need to see Ethan first. Proof he's alive. Or you get nothing. Regina's eyes narrowed. You're not in a position to negotiate. Yes, I am. Because if I'm dead, those codes die with me. And you lose everything. Mary lifted her chin. Bring me Ethan, alive and unharmed, and I'll cooperate. Otherwise, you can tell Vanderbilt you failed. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Then Regina smiled slowly. You've got more of Catherine in you than I thought.
Fine.
I'll have him brought here. But if you're playing games... I'm not. Regina pulled out her phone and made the call. Mary's heart pounded as she waited, praying Ethan's plan, whatever it was, worked. Because if it didn't, they were both dead. And this time, there would be no coming back. I can't even breathe right now. Mary and Ethan are separated. Regina has the upper hand. And Vanderbilt is closing in. Drop a comment telling me how you think Ethan is going to pull this off. And if you're not already subscribed, do it now. 20 minutes pass like 20 hours. Mary sat perfectly still, her mind racing through every possible scenario. The tracker Ethan had planted. When had he done that? This morning? Last night? The man thought 3 steps ahead, always. If she survived this, she was going to kiss him senseless. When she survived this, the door finally opened, and 2 armed guards dragged someone inside.
Ethan.
Mary's breath caught. He looked rough, bruised, bloody, his hands zip-tied behind his back. But his eyes were alert and focused, and when they locked onto hers, she saw something there that made her pulse skip. Determination. And a plan. Happy? Regina asked, gesturing to Ethan like he was a prize she'd won. He's alive. Now give me the passphrase. The guards shoved Ethan into a chair across from Mary, securing his ankles to the legs just like hers were. He winced, selling the performance of a beaten man perfectly. But Mary saw the slight bulge at his ankle. Hidden weapon. Still armed. Mary, Ethan said, his voice rough. Don't do this. Don't give her anything. Shut up, one of the guards snapped, hitting him across the face. Mary flinched, fury blazing through her. Don't touch him, then cooperate, Regina said impatiently. The passphrase.
Now.
Mary looked at Ethan. He gave her the tiniest nod. Trust me. Fine, Mary said, defeated. But I need my hands free. The passphrase isn't just words, it's a melody. My mother used to sing it to me. I need to demonstrate the rhythm, the inflection. Otherwise it won't work. It was a complete lie, but it sounded technical enough to be believable. Regina studied her suspiciously. Nice try. I'm serious. Biometric security isn't just fingerprints and retinal scans. Voice authentication requires exact pitch and cadence. If you want this to work, you need me to do it properly. Regina's eyes narrowed, but greed won out over caution.
Fine.
Cut her hands free, but leave her ankles tied. One of the guards approached with a knife, slicing through the rope around Mary's wrists. Her hands were numb, bloody, but free. She rubbed them together, wincing at the pins and needles sensation, buying time.
Well,
Regina demanded. Start singing. Mary opened her mouth, and the lights went out. Darkness. Complete and absolute. Someone screamed. Gunfire erupted, muzzle flashes lighting up the room in strobing chaos. Mary threw herself sideways out of the chair, her ankles still tied, hitting the concrete hard. She frantically worked at the ropes, her fingers clumsy and desperate. More gunfire. Shouting. The sound of bodies hitting the floor. A hand grabbed her shoulder, and Mary nearly screamed. It's me, Ethan's voice, right in her ear. Hold still. He cut through the ankle ropes in 2 swift motions, then pulled her to her feet. Mary couldn't see anything in the darkness, but Ethan moved with absolute confidence, his hand locked around hers. Stay low. Move when I move. An emergency light flickered on somewhere, casting everything in red. Mary saw the room properly for the first time, 3 guards down, unconscious or worse. Regina was gone, fled through a door Mary hadn't noticed before. And standing near the entrance were 2 figures in tactical gear. Ethan pulled Mary toward them. As they got closer, one of them removed their helmet. A woman. 40s, sharp-eyed, black, with an air of absolute authority. Clear, she said into a radio. Then to Ethan. You cut that close. Joint Task Force, Simone confirmed, her voice crisp and professional. Organized crime, corporate fraud, international conspiracy. Vanderbilt's been on our radar for 15 years, but he's careful. We've never been able to touch him. Until now, Ethan said grimly. Mary has what we need. Then we need to move, Simone said. Vanessa Ripley escaped, and she'll contact Vanderbilt within minutes. This location is compromised. They moved quickly through the warehouse, because that's what it was, Mary realized, an abandoned industrial building on the outskirts of the city. 3 more FBI agents secured the perimeter, while Simone led them to armored vehicles waiting outside. Mary climbed into the back of an SUV, Ethan right behind her. The moment the door closed, he pulled her into his arms. Are you okay? Did they hurt you? I'm fine, Mary managed, though she was shaking violently now that the adrenaline was crashing. You came for me. Always, Ethan said fiercely, pulling back to cup her face, his eyes searching hers. I will always come for you. Do you understand? Mary nodded, tears spilling over. I thought they were going to kill you. The video feed. Looped footage from earlier. I woke up 10 minutes after they knocked me out, saw them taking you, and activated the tracker. He pressed his forehead to hers. I'm sorry I couldn't get to you faster. You got to me in time. That's what matters. They held each other while the SUV sped through the city, Simone and another agent in the front seats coordinating with their team. Finally, Mary pulled back. 3 years? You've been working with the FBI for 3 years? Ethan nodded. I approached them about a year after your father helped me disappear. Told them everything. They agreed to help me build a case in exchange for my testimony and cooperation. So the farm is real. I really do own it, really do work it. But it's also been my cover while I gathered evidence. He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. Everything I told you is true, Mary. I just didn't mention the FBI part. Why not? Because the fewer people who knew, the safer you were. His jaw clenched. I never meant to involve you in this. When Regina approached me with her scheme to marry you off, I saw it as a way to protect you while also getting closer to her operation. I didn't know, he broke off, voice rough. I didn't know you'd become this important to me. Mary's heart clenched. Ethan. I love you, he said simply, his dark eyes intense and unwavering. I know it's fast. I know it's insane.
But I love you, Mary.
And when this is over, I meant what I said. I want you to stay. For real. Mary's breath caught. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was crazy. They'd known each other for 3 days. They were in mortal danger. Nothing about this was normal. But her heart knew what it wanted. I love you too, she whispered. Ethan's smile was brilliant and relieved, and so genuinely happy that Mary's chest ached. He kissed her, slow and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, Simone was watching them in the rearview mirror with an expression of fond exasperation. You two finished? She asked dryly. Because we've got a situation. Ethan cleared his throat, ears slightly red. What situation? Vanderbilt knows we have Mary. He's made contact. Says he wants to negotiate. Mary stiffened. Negotiate what? A trade. Simone's expression was grim. Mary's cooperation in accessing the accounts in exchange for immunity from prosecution and guaranteed safety. Absolutely not, Ethan said immediately. He'll kill her the moment he has what he wants. Probably, Simone agreed. But it gives us an opening. He's proposing a meeting. Tomorrow night. Neutral location. Just him, Mary, and one representative from our side. It's a trap, Ethan said flatly. Of course it's a trap. But it's also our best chance to get him on record making incriminating statements. We wire Mary, get him talking about the murders, the conspiracy.
No.
Ethan's voice was absolute. You're not using her as bait. I'll do it, Mary said quietly. Both of them turned to stare at her. Mary, no. He's my biological father, Mary interrupted, meeting Ethan's eyes steadily. He spent my entire life as this shadow, this monster. I deserve to face him, to hear the truth from his own mouth. And if I can help take him down in the process, then that's what I'm going to do. It's too dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. Mary squeezed his hand. But we're not going to win by hiding. We have to be smart, strategic. And this, facing Vanderbilt, getting him on record, this is how we end it. Simone nodded approvingly. She's right. With Mary's testimony and a recorded confession, we can freeze his assets, arrest his entire network, and dismantle the organization. And if something goes wrong, Ethan demanded, if he grabs her, then you'll be my backup, Mary said firmly. You and Simone, and the entire FBI. I won't be alone. Ethan looked like he wanted to argue more, but he could see the determination in Mary's eyes. You're sure about this? He asked softly. I'm sure. He was silent for a long moment. Then fine. But we do this my way. full tactical support, snipers, extraction team. And if anything feels wrong, you abort immediately. Agreed. Simone made a call, setting things in motion. Mary leaned back against Ethan, exhaustion finally catching up with her. His arm came around her shoulders automatically, holding her close. "There's something else," Mary said quietly. "Something I figured out." "What?" The passphrase. "I know what it is." Both Ethan and Simone went still. "My mother used to sing me a lullaby," Mary continued. "Every night from as far back as I can remember until the night she died. Strange words in a language I didn't understand. I thought it was just a song. But it was a code," Simone said, understanding dawning.
Yeah.
"And I remember it. Every word, every note. It's burned into my memory." Mary looked up at Ethan. "Which means once we have the encryption keys from Regina, I can access those accounts. All $11 billion. And drain them," Ethan said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Take every penny Vanderbilt has hidden away." "Better than that," Simone interjected. "We trace where the money came from. Every transaction, every crime, every victim. We build an airtight case that he can't buy or threaten his way out of." Mary felt something powerful unfurl in her chest. For the first time since this nightmare began, she felt like they had real control, real power. "My mother built this empire," Mary said quietly. "And I'm going to tear it down. For everyone they hurt. For Ethan's family. For my father. For all of it." "Okay, I need to know. Are you ready to see Mary face her biological father? Because this confrontation is going to be intense." Drop a comment with what you think Vanderbilt is going to say when he meets Mary for the first time. And please subscribe if you haven't already, because we're heading into the final showdown. They spent the rest of the day at a secure FBI safe house, planning. Simone's team worked with military precision, mapping out the meeting location, a private restaurant Vanderbilt owned, closed to the public for the evening. They'd wire Mary with audio and video, position agents in the surrounding buildings, and have a tactical team on standby. Ethan stayed by Mary's side through all of it, his hand never far from hers. But it was the quiet moment late that night, when everyone else had finally gone to sleep, that Mary treasured most. She and Ethan sat on the balcony of the safe house, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. He'd wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and made her tea, fussing over her like she was something precious. "Tell me about the farm," Mary said softly. "The real farm. What's it like?" Ethan's expression softened. "Peaceful. Quiet. In the spring, the fields bloom with wildflowers, blue and yellow and purple for miles. There's a creek that runs along the eastern border where deer come to drink at dawn." "Sounds beautiful." "It is." He paused. "I built a workshop there last year. Thought maybe I'd try woodworking. Made some furniture. A table.
Chairs.
Nothing fancy, but solid. Real." Mary smiled, imagining it. "You're a man of many talents." "I had a lot of time to learn things in hiding." His arm tightened around her. "I always thought when this was over, if I survived, I'd just live there quietly, work the land, disappear into a simple life. And now." He looked down at her, his eyes tender. "Now I'm imagining you there, reading on the porch, laughing in the kitchen, waking up next to me every morning." Mary's throat tightened. "That sounds like a dream. It could be real. After tomorrow. After we finish this." He turned to face her fully, taking both her hands. "Mary, I meant what I said. When this is over, I want to build a life with you. A real one. Marriage that means something beyond protection. A home. A future. Children?" Mary asked softly. Ethan's breath caught. "If you want them."
Yes.
"God, yes." Mary imagined it, a little farmhouse, children with Ethan's dark eyes and her smile, a life built on truth and love instead of lies and fear. "I want that," she whispered. "All of it. With you." Ethan kissed her then, deep and slow and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "Then let's survive tomorrow," he murmured. and start living the day after.
Deal.
They stayed wrapped in each other until dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. A new day. A new beginning. If they could just make it through what came next. The meeting was set for 8 p.m. Mary spent the day being briefed, wired, and prepared. Simone's team went over every possible scenario, every contingency, until Mary's head spun with protocols and emergency codes. Ethan stayed close, his presence a constant anchor. At 6 p.m., Mary changed into the outfit they'd selected. Elegant but simple, a dark dress that looked sophisticated enough for dinner with a billionaire while concealing the wire and camera. She barely recognized herself in the mirror. "You look beautiful," Ethan said from the doorway, his voice rough. Mary turned. He was dressed in tactical gear, preparing for his position on the extraction team. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." He crossed to her, cupping her face gently. "But you're also the strongest person I know. You can do this." "What if I freeze? What if I can't?" "You won't freeze. Because you're doing this for your father. For my family. For everyone Vanderbilt has destroyed." His eyes burned with intensity. "And because you know I'll be right outside, ready to burn the world down if anyone tries to hurt you." Mary nodded, drawing strength from his certainty. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too." He kissed her forehead, gentle and reverent. "Now, let's go end this." The restaurant was exactly as pretentious as Mary expected. All crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths and servers who probably earned more than she had in a year. Simone walked her to the entrance, dressed as her attorney, playing the role perfectly. "Remember," Simone murmured, "keep him talking. Get him to admit to the murders, the conspiracy, anything incriminating. We'll handle the rest." Mary nodded, her pulse racing. They walked inside. And there, sitting at a table in the center of the empty restaurant, was Jonathan Vanderbilt. He stood when he saw her, and Mary's breath caught. He looked exactly like her. Same dark eyes. Same cheekbones. Same widow's peak hairline. This man was her father. Genetically, biologically, undeniably. And he was a monster. "Mary," he said, his voice smooth and cultured. "Thank you for coming. Please sit." Mary forced herself forward, every instinct screaming to run. But she sat, and looked into the eyes of the man who destroyed everything she loved. "Hello, Jonathan," she said quietly. "I think we have a lot to discuss." His smile was charming and cold. "Yes, we do. Starting with what you're going to do for me." Mary's spine straightened. "Game on." Jonathan Vanderbilt studied Mary like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. "You have Catherine's fire," he said, pouring wine into 2 glasses. "That stubborn tilt of your chin. She used to do that when she was about to tell me I was wrong." Mary didn't touch the wine. "You wanted to meet. I'm here. Talk.
Direct.
I appreciate that." Vanderbilt settled back in his chair, completely at ease. "Let me tell you what's going to happen, Mary. You're going to provide biometric access to the accounts your mother created. In exchange, I'll give you $20 million and a new identity anywhere in the world you choose. And if I refuse, then people you care about start dying, starting with Ethan Hale." Vanderbilt's smile never wavered. "Did you think I didn't know about your little romance? It's almost poetic, the children of enemies falling in love." Catherine would have appreciated the irony. Mary's hands clenched under the table.
"Stay calm. Keep him talking."
"Tell me about her," Mary said. "My mother. The real story. Not the lies my father told me." Vanderbilt's expression shifted, something almost like genuine emotion flickering across his face. "Catherine was extraordinary. Brilliant, ruthless, fearless. We built this empire together from nothing. She was my partner in every sense of the word." He paused. "And yes, I loved her. Probably the only person I've ever actually loved." "Then why did you let her marry Thomas Deckard?" "Let her?" Vanderbilt laughed. "Catherine did what she wanted. Always. She married Thomas because she needed legitimate cover. An accountant husband who could clean our money and provide respectability. It was strategic.
And me?
Was I strategic too? For the first time, Vanderbilt's mask slipped. Pain crossed his face, quick and genuine. You were a surprise. Catherine didn't tell me she was pregnant until she was 6 months along. By then, she'd already decided. She wanted you raised away from this world. Away from the violence and paranoia and constant danger. His voice roughened. She wanted you to have the childhood she never did. Normal. Safe. Loved. Mary's throat tightened. So, she chose Thomas to raise me.
Yes.
And I agreed. Because I loved her enough to let her protect you from me. Vanderbilt's dark eyes, so like Mary's own, held genuine regret. I've watched you from a distance your entire life, Mary. Every birthday, every graduation, every moment. You were happy. You were safe. Catherine gave you that gift. Until you had Thomas killed, Mary said coldly. Vanderbilt's expression hardened. I didn't kill Thomas Deckard. Liar. I sent Vanessa to monitor him, yes. To ensure he wasn't compromised, that he wasn't planning to expose us. But I gave explicit orders do not harm him. Thomas had kept my daughter safe for 18 years. I owed him that much. Mary's pulse quickened. Then who killed him? The same person who's been trying to destroy me for the last 3 years. Vanderbilt pulled out his phone and brought up a photograph. Recognize her? Mary's blood turned to ice. It was Simone Fisher, the FBI commander, Ethan's supposed ally. But in this photo, she was younger, standing next to Catherine Blackwood. The notation at the bottom read, Catherine Blackwood and Simone Baker, 1998. Simone Baker was your mother's protege, Vanderbilt said quietly. Catherine trained her, mentored her, treated her like a daughter. And when Catherine died, Simone blamed me. Spent the last 25 years infiltrating the FBI, building a case, positioning herself to destroy everything Catherine and I built. Mary's mind reeled. You're lying. Simone has been helping us. Has she? Or has she been using you? Vanderbilt leaned forward. Think, Mary. Who had access to Thomas? Who could have poisoned him slowly over months without suspicion? Who benefits from having you trust her completely? Mary's hands shook.
No.
No, this couldn't be. Her earpiece crackled. Simone's voice ice cold. He's right, Mary. About all of it. Mary's heart stopped. I'm sorry, Simone continued, not sounding sorry at all. But your mother destroyed my family long before she died. And now I'm going to use you to destroy everything she built. Starting with the man you love. Gunfire erupted outside the restaurant. Vanderbilt moved faster than Mary would have thought possible, grabbing her arm and yanking her down as the windows exploded inward in a shower of glass. Mary. Ethan's voice, distant, desperate. More gunfire. Screaming. Chaos. Vanderbilt dragged Mary toward a back exit, his grip like iron. Move. Now. Let me go. If you want Ethan to survive, you'll do exactly what I say. They burst through the kitchen, Vanderbilt moving with the precision of someone trained for this. Behind them, Mary heard boots, shouting, the sounds of a tactical operation falling apart. They reached an underground parking garage. A car was waiting, armored, engine running. Vanderbilt shoved Mary inside and gunned the engine, tires screaming as they peeled out. Mary twisted around, looking through the back window. The restaurant was surrounded by vehicles, FBI, and something else. Private security. Multiple factions converging. And somewhere in that mess was Ethan. I have to go back. He's already dead if Simone has her way, Vanderbilt said grimly, taking corners too fast. She spent 3 years positioning FBI assets loyal to her, not the Bureau. That entire task force? Corrupted. Compromised. They're not there to arrest me. They're there to eliminate everyone who knows the truth. Why would she kill Ethan? He was working with her. Because he knows too much. And because she needs someone to blame for your death. Mary's blood ran cold. My death. Simone's endgame isn't justice, Mary. It's revenge. She wants me to watch my daughter die the way I watched Catherine die. Then she'll frame Ethan for it, kill him, and take control of the accounts herself. Mary's mind raced. Could this be true? Or was Vanderbilt lying, manipulating her? She activated the panic code Simone had given her. 3 quick taps on her watch. Nothing happened. The GPS tracker that was supposed to alert the FBI to her location?
Dead.
The wire transmitting audio?
Static.
Simone had cut her off completely. Why are you helping me? Mary demanded. If you're really my father, why not just let Simone kill me and be done with it? Vanderbilt's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Because you're Catherine's daughter. And I failed to protect her. I won't fail to protect you. He took another sharp turn, heading toward the industrial district. Mary recognized the area: warehouses, shipping containers, abandoned factories. The car screeched to a stop outside a nondescript building. Vanderbilt pulled Mary out, scanning the darkness with a practiced eye of someone who'd survived assassination attempts before. They moved inside quickly. The space was enormous, a warehouse converted into something else. Computer servers, surveillance equipment, safe house, and standing in the center, zip-tied to a chair, bloodied but alive. Ethan. Mary tried to run to him, but Vanderbilt held her back. Trap, he said quietly. And he was right, because stepping out of the shadows, gun in hand, was Simone Fisher. Hello, Jonathan, she said pleasantly. Thanks for bringing her to me. Saved me the trouble. Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes finding Mary's. Relief and terror warred across his face. Mary, run. Shut up, Simone said casually, and pistol-whipped him across the face. Mary screamed, lunging forward. Vanderbilt grabbed her, holding her back. Let him go, Simone, Vanderbilt said, his voice deadly calm. Your fight is with me, not them. My fight is with everyone who helped Catherine Blackwood destroy my family, Simone corrected. She gestured with the gun, and more people emerged from the shadows.
6 of them. Armed.
Not FBI mercenaries. Catherine recruited my mother into her operation, Simone continued, circling them slowly. Promised her wealth, power, security. Instead, she got my mother killed during a botched corporate raid. I was 14. Suddenly an orphan. And you know what Catherine did? Nothing. Didn't even come to the funeral. She tried to protect you. She used my mother and threw her away when it was convenient. Simone's mask cracked, rage bleeding through. So I spent the next 25 years building this moment. Infiltrated the FBI. Positioned myself perfectly. Got close to Ethan, gained his trust, learned everything about his vendetta against you. She smiled at Ethan's shocked expression. What, you thought you found me?
No, sweetheart.
I found you, cultivated you, turned you into the perfect weapon, and you played your part beautifully. Ethan's face drained of color. The evidence, the case files. All real, all meticulously documented.
By me.
So when this is over, the narrative is perfect. Billionaire crime lord Jonathan Vanderbilt murdered by his own daughter and her husband, who then died in the crossfire. Tragic.
Poetic.
And I walk away with $11 billion and complete control of the operation. Mary's mind raced desperately. She still had the passphrase. Without it, Simone couldn't access the accounts. You need me alive, Mary said, for the biometric access.
True.
For now. Simone pulled out a tablet. Here's how this works. You provide access. Transfer every penny to accounts I control. Then I kill your father, your husband, and finally you.
Quick. Clean. Permanent.
And if I refuse? Simone shot Ethan in the leg. He screamed, blood blooming across his thigh. Mary shrieked, fighting against Vanderbilt's grip. That's incentive 1, Simone said calmly. Incentive 2. She aimed at Ethan's head. Cooperate, or I kill him right now. Wait. Mary's voice cracked.
Wait.
I'll do it. Just, please don't hurt him anymore. Mary, no. Ethan gasped through the pain. Smart girl. Simone lowered the gun slightly. Jonathan, bring her here. Vanderbilt's grip on Mary's arm tightened almost imperceptibly. His mouth barely moved. Trust me. Then he pushed Mary forward. She stumbled toward Simone, heart hammering. The tablet was already set up, biometric scanner, access portal. Everything ready. Retinal scan first, Simone instructed. Mary leaned toward the scanner. The device beeped, confirming genetic match. Fingerprint. Mary pressed her thumb to the pad. Another beep. Now the passphrase. Whatever Catherine taught you, sing it. Mary's throat was desert dry. She looked at Ethan, slumped in the chair, bleeding, watching her with agonized eyes. I love you, she mouthed. Then she opened her mouth and sang her mother's lullaby. The words were strange, ancient, some dialect Mary had never identified. But the melody was hauntingly beautiful, exactly as she remembered.
Sa rêverie, mon trésor. Dans les étoiles d'autrefois, protégé par l'amour. Jusqu'au dernier jour.
The tablet chimed. Access granted. Simone's smile was triumphant. Finally, after all these years, the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. And through the loading dock door burst a tactical team, but not FBI. Private security, heavily armed, moving with military precision. Vanderbilt's people. Now, Vanderbilt shouted. Everything happened, at once. Vanderbilt grabbed Mary and Dove behind a shipping container as gunfire erupted. Simone's mercenaries returned fire, the warehouse exploding into chaos. Mary hit the ground hard, Vanderbilt shielding her body with his own. Stay down, he ordered. Ethan, Mary screamed. Through the chaos, she saw him, still zip-tied to the chair, trying to free himself as bullets flew overhead. Mary didn't think. She ran. Mary, no. She sprinted across open ground, bullets kicking up concrete around her feet. She reached Ethan and dropped to her knees, frantically working at the zip ties. Knife, Ethan gasped. My boot. Mary grabbed it, slicing through the plastic. The moment his hands were free, Ethan grabbed the gun from his ankle holster, the one Simone's people had somehow missed, and returned fire, covering their position. Can you walk? Mary asked desperately. Can I breathe? Then I can walk.
He grabbed her hand.
Move. They ran together, Ethan limping badly, blood trailing behind them. They dove behind industrial equipment as more gunfire erupted. Vanderbilt appeared beside them, his own weapon drawn. East exit. 30 seconds when I give the signal. Why are you helping us? Ethan demanded. Because she's my daughter, and you make her happy. Vanderbilt's smile was grim. Catherine would want her happy. He leaned out and fired 3 precise shots, dropping 2 mercenaries. Go! Mary and Ethan ran. Behind them, the firefight intensified. Simone was screaming orders, her perfect plan falling apart. They burst out of the warehouse into the night. A car was waiting. Vanderbilt's people. Get in, the driver shouted. Mary and Ethan threw themselves inside. The car peeled out, tires screaming. Where's Vanderbilt? Mary gasped. Still inside, the driver said. He'll extract separately. We can't just leave him. An explosion rocked the warehouse, the building erupting in flames. No! Mary screamed. The driver kept going, putting distance between them and the destruction. Mary twisted in her seat, watching the warehouse burn, tears streaming down her face. Her biological father, the monster who destroyed so many lives, but who'd also just saved hers, was still inside. We have to go back. Mary. Ethan's hand found hers, squeezing tight. We can't. But he's. I know. They drove in silence, the warehouse fire painting the sky orange behind them. The driver took them to a private airfield 20 miles outside the city. A jet was waiting, engines already running. Mr. Vanderbilt's orders, the driver explained. Get you somewhere safe. He'll contact you when it's clear. Mary's hands shook as she climbed aboard, Ethan leaning heavily on her. A medic was waiting inside, immediately moving to treat Ethan's leg. Bullet went through, the medic said after examination. You're lucky. No major arteries. But you need a hospital. Later, Ethan said through gritted teeth. Patch it enough to get us airborne. Mary held his hand while the medic worked, both of them too exhausted and overwhelmed to speak. The jet was taxiing when Mary's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered, hands shaking. Hello. It's me, Vanderbilt.
Alive.
You made it out, Mary breathed. Barely. Simone's dead. Her mercenaries are dead. The warehouse is destroyed, along with her servers and any evidence she'd compiled. He paused. The real FBI is on scene now. They're going to have questions. What do I tell them? The truth. Simone Baker was a rogue agent who infiltrated the bureau and tried to steal billions in criminal assets. You were an unwitting pawn who escaped. Ethan was a victim. I was never there. They'll never believe. They will. Because I'm sending them evidence, recordings, documents, everything they need to close the case and save face. Vanderbilt's voice softened. You're going to be fine, Mary. Both of you. Mary's throat tightened. What about you?
I'm disappearing.
For real this time. The empire, the accounts, all of it. I'm done. Catherine would want me to stop before I became the thing she feared most. Where will you go? Somewhere warm. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can pretend to be a normal person for whatever time I have left. He paused. I transferred $500 million to an account in your name. Consider it your inheritance from Catherine. Use it however you want. Build something good. Something she would have been proud of. Tears spilled down Mary's cheeks. I don't know what to say. Say goodbye, Mary. And live the life your mother wanted for you.
Be happy.
Be free. Be everything she couldn't be. Will I ever see you again? A long pause. I hope not. Because if you see me, it means something's gone wrong. But I'll be watching from a distance. Making sure you're safe. Always. Jonathan. Mary's voice broke. Thank you.
For protecting me.
For everything. Thank you for being Catherine's legacy. The best thing either of us ever created. His voice roughened. Goodbye, daughter. I love you. The line went dead. Mary sat holding the phone, tears streaming silently. Ethan pulled her against his chest, and she collapsed into him, sobbing for everything. Her mother, her father, the family she'd lost, the family she'd found, the impossible grief and impossible love of it all. The jet lifted into the night sky, carrying them away from the fire and blood and chaos. Towards something new.
Toward home.
Part 9. Satisfying conclusion. 6 months later. Mary stood on the porch of the farmhouse, watching the sun rise over fields of wildflowers exactly as Ethan had described. Blue and yellow and purple stretching to the horizon, swaying gently in the morning breeze. Home. The words still felt strange and wonderful on her tongue. Behind her, the screen door creaked open. Strong arms wrapped around her waist, and Ethan's chin settled on her shoulder. Morning, he murmured, his voice still rough with sleep.
Morning.
Mary leaned back against his chest, smiling. I made coffee. You're perfect. I burned the eggs. Still perfect. Mary laughed, turning in his arms to face him. 6 months had softened the hardness around his eyes, filled out the hollows in his cheeks. He looked healthy.
Happy. Free.
The gunshot wound had healed completely, leaving only a scar on his thigh that he joked made him look distinguished. What are you thinking about? Ethan asked, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Everything. Nothing. Mary kissed him softly. How different life is now. Good different. The best different. The FBI investigation had taken 3 months. Simone Baker's corruption had been extensive. Falsified reports, misappropriated resources, a network of compromised agents. The Bureau had been horrified and grateful in equal measure when Vanderbilt's evidence arrived anonymously, giving them everything they needed to clean house and save their reputation. Mary and Ethan had testified, told their story, handed over the files Thomas Deckard had compiled. The real FBI, the legitimate agents who'd been kept in the dark, had been stunned by the scope of the conspiracy. Vanderbilt Holdings' entire operation was dismantled. Arrests were made. Assets were seized. Jonathan Vanderbilt himself remained a ghost. Officially wanted for questioning, but impossible to find. Mary suspected he'd taken on a new identity somewhere warm and far away, just like he'd said. She hoped he'd found peace. Regina Ripley, Vanessa Baker, Simone's half-sister, as they'd later discovered, had been arrested trying to flee to the Cayman Islands. She was currently serving 40 years for murder, conspiracy, and fraud. Charlotte, Mary's stepsister, had turned state's witness to avoid charges. Last Mary heard, she was working in a call center in Nebraska under a new name. Richard Hale had disappeared as well. His estate sat empty, a monument to betrayal and wasted opportunity. Ethan had no interest in reclaiming it. The past is the past, he'd said. I'm building something new. And he was. They were. With Catherine's inheritance, after lengthy legal battles to prove Mary's identity and legitimate claim, they'd established the Thomas Deckard Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to helping people who'd lost everything to corporate greed and corruption. Legal aid, financial counseling, housing assistance, therapy. Everything Mary wished she'd had during those dark months after her father died. They'd helped 43 families so far. 43 people who no longer had to fight alone. It felt like redemption. The contractor called yesterday, Ethan said, pouring them both coffee. The community center will be finished by next month. Mary's heart swelled. The center was being built on property adjacent to the farm, a place where local families could gather, kids could play, people could find support. It would bear her father's name, Thomas Deckard Community Center. A legacy of love instead of lies. He would have loved that, Mary said softly, seeing his name on something that helps people. He'd be proud of you, Mary, of what you've built from all this pain. We built, Mary corrected, together. Ethan smiled, pulling her close. Together. Later that morning, they walked down to the creek where deer came to drink at dawn. The wildflowers were in full bloom, and Mary had tucked a few behind her ear, making Ethan laugh at how young and carefree she looked. You know what today is? Ethan asked as they settled on the bank, feet dangling in the cool water. Wednesday. It's been exactly 6 months since we got married. Mary blinked. Had it really been that long? And somehow also felt like no time at all? 6 months, she repeated. Feels like a lifetime ago. In some ways. Ethan took her hand, lacing their fingers together. In other ways, feels like yesterday. I still remember seeing you at that table, so scared and so brave, signing your name. I thought I was signing away my life. Instead, you were starting it. Mary's throat tightened with emotion. Ethan shifted, reaching into his pocket. I have something for you. He pulled out a small velvet box. Mary's breath caught. Ethan. I know we're already married, he said quickly, opening the box to reveal a simple, beautiful ring, a sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. But that marriage was survival. Strategy. I want to do this right. The way you deserve. He slid off the rock and dropped to one knee in the shallow water, Mary's hand still in his. Mary Blackwood, you are the strongest, kindest, most extraordinary person I've ever met. You've turned my life from hiding and darkness into something full of light and purpose and love. I want to spend every day for the rest of my life making you as happy as you've made me. His voice roughened with emotion. Will you marry me? Again? For real this time? Tears streamed down Mary's face. Yes. Yes, absolutely yes. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, and pulled her into his arms, kissing her as the morning sun painted everything gold. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, Mary whispered, I love you. So much it scares me sometimes. I love you too. And you never have to be scared again. I've got you. Always. Always, Mary agreed. They planned the wedding for early autumn. Nothing elaborate, just close friends, the few family members Ethan had reconnected with, and people from the community who'd become like family over the past months. The ceremony took place right there on the farm, surrounded by fields that had been harvested and were preparing for winter rest. Mary wore a simple white dress, wildflowers in her hair. Ethan wore a suit that actually fit him properly, looking so handsome Mary's heart stuttered. As they exchanged vows they'd written themselves, Mary thought about everyone who'd brought them to this moment. Her mother, Catherine, flawed and complicated, but who'd loved her enough to give her a chance at a normal life. Her father, Thomas, who'd chosen her every day, who'd protected her even in death, who'd taught her that family was built on love, not blood. Jonathan Vanderbilt, her biological father, a monster who'd found one last shred of humanity in protecting his daughter. Even Simone, in a twisted way, whose betrayal had ultimately led Mary to her real family. And Ethan, her partner, her love, her home. I do, Mary said, her voice clear and strong.
Ido est un écode.
And when they kissed, the small crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Before we finish this incredible journey, I want to hear from you. What was your favorite moment in Mary and Ethan's story? Did you see those twists coming? Comment below with your thoughts, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I post stories like this regularly, and I promise you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's see how Mary and Ethan's story truly ends. 1 year later, Mary stood in the nursery, painting the walls a soft yellow. Well, trying to paint. Mostly she was getting paint on herself and laughing at her own incompetence. Need help? Ethan asked from the doorway, grinning at the paint streak across her nose. I need skills, Mary corrected, but I'll settle for help. He crossed to her, taking the brush and finishing the section she'd been struggling with in smooth, even strokes. Show off. You've done this before, Mary accused. I told you I learned a lot of random skills in hiding. Painting,
Carpentry.
plumbing. Turns out they're all useful. Mary's hand drifted to her stomach, still flat but sheltering the tiny miracle growing inside. 3 months along. A girl, according to the ultrasound. They were naming her Catherine Thomas Hale. For both grandmothers. For complicated legacies and chosen families and love that transcended biology. She's going to be so loved, Mary whispered. Ethan set down the brush and wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands covering hers on her stomach.
She already is.
More than she could possibly know. We're going to tell her everything, right? When she's old enough. The truth about where she comes from. All of it, Ethan confirmed. The good and the bad. But mostly, we're going to tell her that she comes from love. That despite everything, despite all the pain and chaos, she was wanted. Chosen. Cherished. Mary leaned back against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For saving me.
For loving me.
For giving me this life. Mary. Ethan turned her to face him, cupping her face gently. You saved yourself. I just had the honor of being there to witness it. You're the hero of this story. We both are, Mary corrected. We saved each other. Yeah, Ethan agreed, kissing her forehead. I guess we did. That evening, they sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. The farmhouse had been expanded, a new wing for the baby, an office for Mary's foundation work, a proper workshop for Ethan's woodworking. But it still felt like the same peaceful sanctuary it had been from the beginning. Home. Mary's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Saw the wedding announcement. Congratulations, daughter. Be happy. Mary smiled, showing Ethan. Somewhere out there, Jonathan Vanderbilt was watching. Keeping his promise. Making sure she was safe. She hoped he'd found happiness too. Redemption, maybe. Peace, definitely. You okay? Ethan asked. Better than okay. Mary tucked the phone away and curled into his side. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. With me. With you. In this house. Building this life. Helping people. Growing our family. She looked up at him, her heart so full it ached. A year ago, I thought I'd lost everything. That there was nothing left worth fighting for. And now I know the truth. You can lose everything and still find something more valuable than what was taken. Mary's hand found his, squeezing tight. You can lose your inheritance and gain a legacy. Lose your family and find your home. Lose your old life and discover who you were always meant to be. Ethan's eyes glistened with unshed tears. You've become quite the philosopher. I've had a good teacher. Life's knocked me down enough times that I've learned to pay attention to the lessons. They sat in comfortable silence as stars began appearing in the darkening sky. Ethan? Mary said softly. Yeah, thank you for being penniless. He laughed, the sound rich and warm. What? If you'd been the billionaire everyone thought you were from the start, if you'd shown up in designer suits and fancy cars, Regina never would have pushed me toward you. I never would have married you. We never would have found each other. Huh. Ethan considered this. So poverty saved us? Perceived poverty, Mary corrected. And yeah, in a weird way it did. All the money in the world couldn't have bought what we have. This was built on something real.
Trust. Partnership.
Love. Plus a kidnapping, a shootout, and multiple betrayals, Ethan added wryly. Well, nobody's perfect. They laughed together, the sound carrying across the fields. Later, as they prepared for bed, Mary caught sight of their reflection in the bedroom mirror. A black woman and the man who loved her, standing in the home they'd built together, preparing to welcome a child into a world they were actively making better. Against all odds. Despite all obstacles. Through all the pain and loss and impossible choices. They'd survived. More than survived, they'd thrived. What are you thinking? Ethan asked, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. Mary smiled at their reflection. That my stepmother forced me to marry a penniless farmer, unaware he was a secret billionaire. And it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. Even with all the trauma and near-death experiences? Even with all that. She turned in his arms, rising on her toes to kiss him. Because it led me here.
To you. To us.
To this beautiful, impossible, perfect life. I love you, Mary Hale. I love you too, Ethan Hale. They climbed into bed, tangled in each other's arms, hearts beating in sync. Outside, the wind whispered through the wildflowers. Inside, two people who'd lost everything and found each other slept peacefully, dreaming of the future they were building. One day at a time. One choice at a time. One moment of love at a time. And somewhere, in a place warm and far away, a man who'd spent his life destroying things allowed himself to hope that his daughter, Catherine's legacy, Thomas's gift, Mary's triumph, would build something beautiful from the ashes he'd left behind. She already was. She already had. And she always would.
The end. Wow.
What a journey. From a forced marriage to true love, from losing everything to building something extraordinary, from darkness to light. Mary and Ethan's story proves that sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead us exactly where we're meant to be. I want to hear from you. What was your favorite part of the story? What surprised you the most? What moment made you cry or cheer? Drop a comment below and let me know. And if you loved this story, please share it with someone who needs to hear a tale of hope, resilience, and love conquering all. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I post stories like this regularly, tales of unexpected romance, shocking twists, and endings that will leave you believing in second chances. Thank you for joining me on Mary and Ethan's journey. Until next time, remember, no matter how dark things get, there's always hope. There's always love. And there's always the possibility of a beautiful new beginning. See you in the next story.